anybody that needs to use the linked repeater system before the beginning of the Newbie Net, come now. It is N1NQU.
Welcome to the Fort Myers Amateur Radio Club linked repeater system.
Nothing heard. CQ. This is Larry, N1NQU, with the Fort Myers Amateur Radio Club's Newbie Net. This net is primarily for newbies, to give them some no-pressure mic time, and to answer any questions they may have regarding ham radio. What we do is take check-ins, then go around twice to see if we can answer those questions that come up. Please, if you use phonetics when checking in, use the standard ARRL approved phonetic alphabet. This is Larry, N1NQU, taking check-ins for the Newbie Net.
November 6th, Juliet Delta Hotel, John and Matt Lachey.
Whiskey 4 Echo Juliet, Whiskey Ed, Cape Coral.
K1 CJV, Carmine.
Kilo Quebec 4, Romeo Charlie Foxtrot, Dave. K4RAB, Rick.
Romeo 4, Delta Romeo, Tom, Cape Coral. November 1, Delta Alpha Bravo, David.
Kilo, Quebec 4. Kilo, November, Papa, Bill.
Kilo Romeo 4, Delta India Romeo, Sean.
Whiskey 4, Echo Sierra, Eric. Okay, we'll hold up there for just a moment. Okay, it took me a minute. Call signs were coming real quick there, and I got call signs, but I did not get some of the names written down, so I just went back and had to add some of the names in. So with that, copied N6, JDH, John, W4, EJW, Ed, K1, CJV, Carmine, KQ4, RCF, Dave, K4, RAB, Rick, KR4, DDR, Tom, KO4, EFS, Ian, who's going to be in and out. So, Ian, I won't call on you, but if you do monitor for a bit and you want to jump in, feel free. Just throw out your call sign. I'll come back to you. N1, DAB, David, KQ4, KNP, Bill, KR4, DIR, Sean, and W4, EPS, Eric. And with that, do we have any additional check-ins or corrections? Come now, call sign and first name. Do we have any additional check-ins for the Newbie Net? Come now, call sign and first name, please.
Kilo, Romeo 4, Delta Foxtrot, Stephen.
KR4, DDF, Stephen, I got you in there. And we'll give another call. Any check-ins for the Newbie Net? Come now, call sign and first name, please. Nothing heard. So with that, we got a pretty good list here, and so we'll start in. if there is somebody out there that wants to check in, just throw out your call sign. I'll get you on the list. And as always, at the end of each round, I will specifically call for check-ins also. So just a reminder, and I know I say this every once in a while, this is basically a learning net. So if there's folks that want to give net control a try, either a topic that is predetermined or a topic you come up with, just let me know and we can definitely work that out, get you a little bit of experience. So with that, topic. So interesting topic, and I'm going to lead in with a little bit of a story. And the topic is Elmers. And the way that I came up with that topic is yesterday was kind of interesting. And Ed, I'm going to let people know what happened. So Ed and I have been working. He wanted to get on Fusion and get a personal digital node, a PDN, set up. And with that, I was working with him, and we were getting him set up and, got him up and running yesterday. Right? Yes. Well, actually, I think it was Saturday. We got Ed up and running Saturday on the PDN, and he is now on Fusion. Let me break for the repeater. So that being said, yesterday I was trying to set up on Fusion as part of the linking system an HRI 200, which I've done a bunch of PDNs and I can get them done pretty quick. But I was trying to do an HRI 200, and with the HRI 200, you need to open up ports. And not only did I not particularly understand ports and how that worked, but it was the first time I had done it. And I kind of hit a wall there, and I was going nowhere. And I ended up contacting Dan, KD7ACB, who was the head of technical and repeater. And we've been working kind of on the Fusion system to get that up and glorious again. And we spent probably about, no joke, about 2 hours on the phone trying to get through it. In the morning,
KR4PI-R
I had to stop and cook my daughter breakfast. And then in the afternoon, we were back at it. And let me break in for the repeater. So all in total, we probably spent, and this is not a joke, about 4 hours on the phone with Dan trying to help me get through this to figure out what we needed to do to get the ports open and to get everything set up. And, of course, once we got that, the rest was easy because I'm familiar with the software and we both worked with the software. But, man, that thing was a bear. So I know we've talked about Elmers before, but this is a perfect case of we have somebody that's a little bit newer getting into it, and I ended up being the Elmer on it. And then we had a case where I was getting into something new on the same topic, still with the Fusion system, C4FM, and I had to reach out to an Elmer to help me. So, and I thought that was interesting because I thought that it shows that you can be an Elmer and you can also be Elmered. And it doesn't matter how long you've been in the hobby. You go into a different area and maybe you're not familiar with it. And let me break again. This is Larry, N1NQU for the Fort Myers Amateur Radio Club Newbie Net. So, with that, I do want to talk about Elmers. Their importance. Also, folks that have made the transition. I know we have a number of folks here, that, have made that transition from a brand newbie to, hey, now they're Elmering people. And folks that are new and that have gotten Elmering help, what really helped? What was, what were the questions? And, just everyone share their thoughts. So with that, before we go to the top, I will give another call for check-ins. Do we have any check-ins for the Newbie Net? Come now, call sign and first name.
comment before you start with the top.
Carmine, go ahead.
Yeah, before you start with the Elmer, I wanted to just let you know that the club had the Elmer chair was an interim, and we do have someone that is willing to take that. And just to let you know, that's Bud Howard. And I was going to give you a little bit of information of what the plan is with the Elmer program. The Elmer program is going to be two-phase. It's going to be the traditional, hey, I'm broke over here, how do I fix it? And the other side is going to be the mentorship program, where we start working with new people in getting them involved in the club and getting them involved in activities. And that's all going to be part of one big program that Bud is going to head up. He'll be going before, we're going to submit him before the board at the next board meeting to take over that committee. So we're looking to expand that role, and our thought process is everybody, regardless of how new you are in the hobby, can be an Elmer or can be Elmered. And if you just got your license, you may be an Elmer to someone that's looking to get your license, to say, what did it take to get the license? And you're the perfect person to answer that question. This is what it took me. It wasn't that bad. So just wanted to let you know what the plans are for the Elmer program for the club, so you can use that when you take it into account of your talking point. Break. And I will wait until my go-round, because I had something to add on the C4FM, of an interesting thing that I'm running into. But I'll wait for that. Back to Net.
Thanks, Carmine. And I know that I'm glad we have somebody to fill that chair. And part of that chair is that, that position is not expected to know all the answers. That position is, designed to have somebody that has resources, and if there's a question, he knows who the resource is to answer that question. And that's a perfect example of not everybody is an expert in every single aspect of the hobby. So with that, I will see if there's any additional check-ins. There was one station that was trying to check in, but you were in the weeds, and I couldn't copy anything. So, but we'll give an opportunity for anybody else to check in, or that station trying to get in. Come now.
Net control. Whiskey 4, Foxtrot, November, Papa, W4 FMP, Alex, and Eastern Estero.
Okay, we picked up W4 FNT. Alex, got you in there. And as I said, I think there was another station, and the other station, if you want to just throw your call sign out, a little bit later, but right now I am absolutely copying nothing. You got the repeater, but you're so far in the weeds, I can't copy anything in there. So with that, this is Larry N1NQU for the Fort Myers Amateur Radio Club Newbie Net. And with that, we will go to the top N6, JDH. John, over to you.
Thank you, Larry. Net control. Elmers are very important, and mentors are important too. I had a very good mentor for a POTA, and it's what caused me to get the bug and start hitting the POTA activations. And my mentor was AA4JS, and I am internally thankful for what he did. But I also believe that as a ham radio operator, hams help hams. And I'm not the one that started that little slang, but that was told to me by my mentor. Hams help hams. And with that, that's the reason I decided to help people get started with POTA activating and just learning POTA and the software and the setups and stuff like that. And it's just a matter of everybody does that because there's so many areas. And we can't master them all. I mean, look at Carmine. You know, he's a Yaesu person, and he ran into something with programming for Fusion. But anyway, I really feel it's vitally important, and I think Bud will make a great choice for sort of a traffic control officer and directing people. And with that, back to Net, and I will be on the side monitoring Larry. So back to Net Control. This is November 6th, Juliet Delta Hotel.
Comment?
Thank you, John, and I will put you down as this is your 7-3 round, but if there is something you hear and you wanted to jump in, feel free. There was a station coming in.
W4FNP with a comment.
W4FNP, Alex, over to you.
Thank you, Larry. John, I want to express to you my gratitude for stepping up. I'm hoping that once I get done with my soon-to-be trip to California to take care of some family business, I can meet you out in the field and learn the POTA activation. That is what really kind of drew me in. On a side note, I'm seeing a lot of negativity, unfortunately, from ham operators on Facebook. The different quote-unquote ham channels that are there, and it unnerves me that how much they rip up a quote-unquote for asking a simple question. They tell them, look, you got your technician license, you should have learned that, yada, 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 yada. Well, you know what? I'm sorry. Everybody makes mistakes. I work in medicine. I have been in medicine for 35 years. And you know what? There is no stupid questions in that field. I take them from all levels of healthcare providers. And I take it with a grain of salt, and I give them constructive criticism or help from my heart, from my experience. So I appreciate what John's doing. I'll get out of here before the repeater cuts me off. W4FNP, back to the net.
Good evening. The time is 8 p.m.
Thanks, Alex. And so I will, yes. And part of it is that one person that mentored me was Tom Huey, AC4TM. And unfortunately, he is a silent key. But for those of you that are not aware of it, he did the Newbie Net before I took over. And he was actually, he would do the net. And when I got back into the hobby and I started being a participant in the net, it kind of gave me the bug to go ahead and upgrade. And, of course, John A4JS, you know, a lot of great information and, you know, over the years that he's given me, and then other folks. So, but one of the things Tom Huey used to say was, when you get your ticket, that's your license to learn. And you don't know everything. And John A4JS, you know, always says, be the mentor that you always wanted, the Elmer that you always wanted. And that's a perfect saying. So thanks, Alex. And with that, we'll go to Ed, W4EJW. I hope I didn't put you on the spot there.
Comment, Larry, November 6th, Juliet Delta Hotel.
And 6, JDH, over to you, John, for a comment.
Thank you, Ned. Don't worry, Ed. It'll be quick. You know, when I took the test, and as many people do, I didn't come from an electronics background. But with the learning course that I went through, you basically memorize the questions. So the education began after you got the license, which it has been. And of course, I upgraded to general, and then I've taken the extra test twice now, and I've missed it both times by one question. So, you know, you're right, absolutely. The learning begins after you get the ticket to talk. And, you know, John taught me a lot, and I made a deal with him to pass it on. So that's what I'm doing. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We owe it to each other to help each other. And back to Net. And Ed, sorry I cut in on you. November 6th, Juliet Delta Hotel.
Thanks, John, and definitely some good points there. Ed, W4EJW, over to you.
This is W4EJW. Thank you, Larry, and good evening to everyone on the net. First of all, both Larry and I applied for our Wires X node and room IDs on a Friday, and just to add on what Larry had started the net with, and we received our IDs the following, a week later, actually, on a Saturday morning. I didn't even know I had received it, and Larry had gotten in contact with me and told me that we both got them around 9:30. So on Saturday, with Larry's help, we went in and programmed the FTM 510 for Wires X. And you can't really do anything until you have the IDs, because the software needs to be loaded with that information. And was very successful in getting that mode working, the PDN, which is a direct access. On Sunday, I went in again and worked on it and actually activated the access mode using a handheld. The question I have is I don't know exactly how much heating with 100% duty cycle in the access mode it's going to hurt the radio, or how much I'm going to need a separate fan. I want to thank Larry for the assistance. He's a great mentor. He takes a lot of time away from his daily activities to work with us. I'll take a break for the repeater. This is W4EJW. Larry has great patience and takes the time to work with people, not only me. I want to mention some other people that are also have also contributed as mentors, and that's Bob Lewis, N8GU, Rick Schneider's, KR4PI, Dan Hurst. I talk to Dan maybe every other day. Really patient, great guy, and a great mentor, W8OJ. And, of course, the last person that spoke, and that's Jonathan Hunt, who took the time when I first got licensed, and he was also new and came over and worked with me getting an HF antenna up, and was extremely helpful, as he is still with new people that come aboard. And I appreciate the help of all of these people, and I hope that those of you out there that also need help get what you need. This is W4EJW, and I'll give it back to the net. Thanks again, Larry.
This is Larry, N1NQU for the Fort Myers Amateur Radio Club Newbie Net. Ed, you're more than welcome, and the point of the whole, bringing it up was, no matter what stage in your ham radio career you're in, you can be a mentor, but you can also be mentored. And it just, and part of it is you go into a different area. So you are kind of moving into a different area, and it was an area I've been working in for quite a while. So the PDNs, I understand. This was actually my fifth time I had put in an application. So I'm experienced with that. But when I turned around and I was doing HRI 200 for the first time, I needed help with the ports, and between that and Comcast, and it was an adventure. It literally took we were literally on the phone 4 hours trying to, get all the lights to show up green. And Ed, you'd be surprised because when you least expect it, you'll find you're answering questions for somebody else, and then all of a sudden, guess what? You're an Elmer. So, thank you, Ed. And Carmine, K1CJV, over to you. And I think I know what you're going to mention, but we'll see.
Yeah, this is K1CJV. Ed, one last thing. You asked about the duty cycle. If you're working a handheld against your radio and you're close by it, just turn the radio down as low as you can. There's no need to keep that up high for duty cycle reasons. If you can reach it with your HT and you're trying to reach it, that's what you should do. I run an Allstar Node, and that runs on half power all the time. It never runs at full power, just for that reason, for duty cycle. Break. Okay, now with my question. I have a new mini PC that I want to replace big horse that's here that's running old software on my HRI 200, and it's giving me some can't update it or whatever. A lot of the mini PCs do not have a built-in prolific chip in them now. So the one that I have does not have prolific chips in it. So the USBs are bare. So you can't add the prolific driver to run the HRI 200. So that is a problem for me. Break. So basically what I'm looking at trying to see if it will work, and if anyone knows if this will work, is to get a USB-A to RS-239 cable that has a built-in prolific 2303 chip in the cable. Then take the 239 and run it backwards to a USB to plug into the HRI 200, and that should get me a prolific chip in the system that I can load the driver onto. And I'm just wondering, has anyone ever tried that, and do you think it will work? Back to you.
KR4PI-R repeater.
KD7ACB comment.
KD7ACB, go ahead.
Hey, Carmine. Yeah, my advice, switch out the PC. So the new PCs that we're checking out for a lot of these, for these fusion nodes that we're getting up and running, run the HRI 200 just fine. So go on Amazon and search for Peloton. I believe, I have to look up the spelling real quick. I believe it's P like Paul, E-L-E-D-N or I-D-N. I think it's E-D-N. Peloton, W-I-6. And they're about 140, 150 bucks. Little mini PC. They run on 12 volts, so that's a bonus. But they're Win 11, and they run the HRI 200 just fine. So my advice, switch out the PC instead of trying to do all that cable spaghetti. KD7ACB, back to net.
Yeah, I can do that. I mean, I can probably go and look for one, but the problem that I'm having right now is that this is a brand new PC, higher end one, and it's a little bit more secure, and it comes with a specific recommendation because of security on it from someone that is in the security business. The Minis Forum, that even though it's a Chinese one, it's got some protection features that I can avoid. So it's brand new, running Windows 11 Pro. So that's why I'm looking at to see if anyone knows if that will work, because that's like a $30. The cable would run me about 35 bucks. I don't really want to buy another PC.
Okay, because the HRI-200 as well as the serial side of it, I think it also does some sound stuff as well digitally. So I'm not sure because I never tried it, but I think it has to have that direct connection. KD7ACB.
Welcome to the Fort Myers Amateur Radio Club linked repeater system.
Yeah, this would bring it from USB-A to 239 back to USB-B.
Yeah, but there's a sound chip in there. So, but yeah, I don't want to tie up the net, too long here. But this week I've got lots of time, so either give me a call after the net if you want, or tomorrow or whatever, and we'll talk through it, and maybe we can come up with something. KD7ACB.
I thank you so much, Dan. Yeah, this thing's driving me nuts, but the old one's just not. The old computer is just. I think it's bad. We got to change that out, and that's where part of the problem why I keep losing connectivity with the 200. That's all I have. Back to net, and I got to go 73. It's time to walk the dog.
Okay, Carmine. And I don't know the answer to that, so as I said, Dan may be able to help with that. So for anybody that is interested in that computer, it is the Paladin, which is Papa Echo Lima Delta November. And now what we're using is the 6. It's an N100 processor, 16 gigabyte RAM, and 512 gigabyte hard drive, which obviously we need very, very little of it. Right now, they still have them on Amazon. They are, I think, $169 with a $26 coupon. So you're talking about $143 plus tax. So we are in the process of getting 2 set up. And I will tell you, yesterday when I went to take get everything back out to play with the computer to see if we can get it back on air, it slipped out of my hand, and literally from waist high, it did the double bounce off the tile floor. And I picked it up, and I'm like, holy crap. And believe it or not, plugged it in, fired it up, and it worked perfectly. I was absolutely amazed. So I understand about the security. As far as, these computers that we're using them for, I mean, they are pretty much dedicated wires X, so they're not running any, anything, real that important on it except for the wires X stuff. Let me break to the repeater. This is Larry, N1NQU for the Fort Myers Amateur Radio Club Newbie Net. And Ed, I do apologize. I forgot to answer your question as far as the duty cycle. So the answer is, as far as duty cycle, I would run the lowest power you can. On my radios, if I am using them as a node, I always try to run them at minimum power. I always try to run them at 5 watts if I absolutely can. I would not run them more than 25 watts, and that would be only if absolutely necessary. And because they're in full-time use, including in a net where they may be running 5 watts, at a 100% duty cycle, I try to I do put external cooling on them anyway, just because they are, in full-time service. It can't hurt to have an external fan on it, to keep everything nice and cool. You'd be surprised, how hot something will get running minimum power when you're at 100% duty cycle. So, with that, we will go to Dave, KQ4RCF. Dave, over to you.
Thank you, Larry. This is KQ4RCF, and I'm going to touch on all topics, starting with duty cycle. Last week, I cut out before I could comment in the first round because the battery that I was using, that I was testing, finally cut out. It lasted 3 weeks through several hours of monitoring and very few hours of talking. It was a 12-volt, 10-amp battery from Dakota, and I cut out before I got a chance to comment in the first round last week. Break for the repeater. Also, I'd like to say thank you to K2AWS, Al. He has been my mentor / Elmer without actually defining it. Anytime I have a question, he's been beyond helpful. I understand he's taking on different duties within the club, but I hope I can continue to rely on him. And finally, as far as the internet goes, Facebook, I posted something last night and I answered my own question on Google, but I did get some very informative answers online. I switched to fiber optic today as opposed to coax coming in the house for internet service, and I was concerned that it was going to interfere with RF, but from my understanding and my research, there is zero interference either way on that because one operates on light and one operates on radio frequencies. And so far today, is my experience, it's been great. Back to you, Larry. Thank you.
K4SJC repeater.
Thanks, Dave. And I was wondering what happened last week, and I figured, you just got called away. I know anytime I go to talk on the radio, that's when everybody calls, they text, they, knock on the door. It never fails. So that's interesting, the optical versus the coax, and I guess that would be the other lesson learned is that batteries go at the least opportune time. So, especially for the HTs, the ones I use on the most regular basis, I usually just try to swap them out to get low, and when they're about there, I just take a fresh one, put it in, and then, charge the other one. I know some people leave them in the charger full time, but I don't do that. I just charge them as necessary. So, thanks, Dave. And I think John had mentioned Bob NHEU, had given a lot of advice, and I've learned a lot from Bob, as far as antennas. Bob is extremely knowledgeable for anyone that has antenna questions. Also CW. So there's a lot of folks. And speaking of somebody that I've gotten a lot of advice from and, help over the years, Rick, K4RAB, over to you.
Okay, well, this is K4RAB. We can say about our ham radio hobby that we have advanced beyond the stage where you call some 800 number and get somebody that barely speaks English, doesn't understand your problem, because you've got a lot of people in this club that know an awful lot. And I've asked for help sometimes too. So I've been in ham radio 50 years and I'm still learning stuff. So plus I love to tinker around. I'm getting me another computer in to mess with, to put Linux on and mess with it, and see if I can get some of the logging software running under Linux. See if we can get rid of some of these Windows 11 problems, get around that. But anyway, be that as it may, I see these Pellet and Mini PCs on Amazon, and that might be a solution for something. I don't know, but anyway, it's amazing, the technology. So let me reset the repeater. So suffice it to say, I've had some interesting Elmers through my. The first guy was named Bud, and then I I forgot his call for some reason. It helped me get started when I was up at USF back in the 70s, and of course I've had a couple of other great guys in Atlanta, and of course down here. So Elmers are something that are great to have around, and we've got plenty of them here. So that's great to know. So I guess I'll quit babbling and turn it back over to Net, K4REB.
Thanks, Rick. And you know something, it's always great to have folks, and it's one of the advantages of being in a club this size. And not only do we, have a very large club in comparison, but we have a very diverse club. We have a lot of very knowledgeable people, and a huge depth of experience and knowledge. And that sometimes we take it for granted, but not all clubs are like this. I'd say that this is the exception. So thanks, Rick. This is Larry, N1NQU for the Fort Myers Amateur Radio Club Newbie Net. And with that, Tom, KK4DDR, over to you.
Well, thank you, Larry. I'm Brad Newham here in Southwest Cape Coral. I just got my license last month. I want to start off by asking how you're reading me on this HD. It's my first time using the picture.
Well, congratulations, Tom, and welcome. And as far as your signal, you got a lot of noise on the signal. You're copyable, but it is a little bit noisy. Back to you.
Copy that. I thought that might be. I just want to say thank you to the club. My first encounter with the club was Bill White, and he was very nice. After my exam, I reached out to Bob Lewis, who has given me a lot of time and it's a lot to learn, and I'm having a good time doing it. Back to you, Larry.
Well, again, Tom, welcome, and you'll find that there's a lot of people, that are here to help, and everything is a progression. It really is. Everybody, was newly licensed. Everyone had their first time on the air, and there's also a lot of other firsts. For example, I was licensed quite a long time before I upgraded, and not only was there the first time on the air, there was the first time on the air after I had been kind of on the side for about 20 years, and then there was the first time on the air on HF. And, so there's always a bunch of firsts, and as I said, before you know it, you'll be getting somebody else into the hobby and, Elmering somebody else. So welcome, and glad to have you on board. Ian is next. He was in and out, and so we'll go to David, N1 DAB. Over to you. N1 DAB. David, you still on air? Nothing heard. David, if you did have to step away from the radio and you're still within earshot, when you get back, and if you want to just throw your call sign out, I'll get you back into the rotation. If I don't hear from you, I will definitely call you on you again on the second round. And we'll give a moment to see if you copy that. Nothing heard, so we'll go to Bill, KQ4, KNP. Welcome, over to you.
Well, good evening, Larry. Elmers, and mentors. Very interesting topic. It's one of those things where you never know you need somebody until you need somebody. And then when you need somebody, you don't know who you need. So the next best thing is to know who to call. So that's going to be good to be able to hook into Bud. Hopefully Bud will be able to circle things around. So I had an immediate need yesterday when we did the run up at Lakes Park. I thought I was all well and good and had myself prepared and, all good things. I get up there, and we didn't get a good time set up to do radio check, and I come to find out that my radio was not transmitting. Absolutely nothing. I could hear everybody, but I couldn't transmit. Couldn't figure it out. So Al Schwartz and I were next to each other, so we just did hand signals and finished out the day. But all was well and good. And then I spent an hour and a half at home trying to figure it out, and it kept going through my head. One of the last things that Al had said was, well, you may just need to reset. And that's exactly what I did. But it was a little deeper than that. But I got it figured out. It's working now. So once again, it's the ability of talking to somebody and then being able to put their knowledge to use. Otherwise, you think you've got something that's absolutely broken and you can't fix it. We'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Bill. And, and it was funny because we kind of had something like that on Sunday trying to get Ed on the air. And Ed, I'm not trying to pick on you here, but, he had everything up and it just wouldn't connect. It would just beep and it wouldn't connect. And I asked him, okay, well, is it saying anything? And he said, it's in standby mode. I said, oh, okay. You just have to press the wires X button. You kind of have to get out of standby mode into operational mode. Did that and up and running. So the question is, how do I know that? So realistically, when I did my first node, and I was trying to get it on Wires X for the first time, and of course I have all the books and everything else out, and I don't really know what I'm doing. And, I'm kind of bumbling along, and I get to that same point, and it's in standby mode. I can't get it to connect. I can't do anything. And it finally dawned on me, well, let me try pressing that, see what happens. Then all of a sudden, everything started working. Well, the difference is that I think I spent probably a couple days on and off trying to figure that out and play with it and everything else. And I was that close, and so, it's nice to have a situation where, at least I can look back on it and say, I remember doing that because I spent days trying to figure it out, and you can kind of help somebody along the path and just say, yeah, just press this, and, and know that somebody didn't have to spend days messing around with it. And, that's one of the nice things about not only having an Elmer, but being able to be an Elmer and give back and save somebody else some grief. As I said, just as Dan, KD7ACB saved me a bunch of grief, because, I don't know, that could have been, weeks and weeks trying to figure out those ports. So this is Larry, N1NQU for the Fort Myers Amateur Radio Club Newbie Net. And go to Sean, KR4PI-R. Over to you.
Comment, Larry?
W4EJW. Ed, over to you.
Yeah, very quickly. I just went into Wires X just to lower my power or see how to lower it. And I did the same thing again. I was wondering why I wasn't getting out, and you got to remember to push that button. Amazing. But yeah, it would have been weeks to try and figure that one out. Thank you again, Larry. Back to the net. This is W4EJW.
Ed, you're more than welcome. And, it's not that I'm a genius, because that is far from the reality. It's just that, I knock my head against the wall sometimes, and when it finally clicks, I kind of remember it. For the longest time, I always said when I was working as a technician, doing mechanical repair and diagnosis, I often learned more from my failures than, my successes. And I was just happy you could benefit from, one of my failures and, kind of turn it into a success. Sean, KR4PI-R, over to you.
This is KR4PI-R. Hello, Larry, and everybody on the net. Good evening. Glad to be on here. I appreciate the time to listen to my beautiful voice here. So on topic, the mentorship program, really interesting. As I'm new, you guys are aware, it's probably my second Newbie Net, if I'm not mistaken. But got me into the club, listening to everybody here. It's great to hear the family environment. It's kind of enticing to keep trying to be a part of the air with you guys, because you guys are all friends, plenty of knowledge there. I want to be a part of it. I want to learn it. That way, playing with this is more like a game than trial and error, which is part of the ham soul, so I hear every day.
So, Sean, thanks for coming in for net number 2. And as I said, it's a learning process. So last week was net number 1. This is number 2. And you just build on that. And, as I said, I was out of the hobby for about 20 years and got back in. And, I was kind of a newbie on some things when I came back in because in the time I was gone, all of a sudden we have all these digital modes. And as I said, I ended up as a participant on the Newbie Net, and I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I wasn't even HF, licensed at that time, and just came in and learned and upgraded and asked a bunch of questions. And some questions were better than others, but I always learned from the answer, and went from there. And I'll turn it back to you for any comment or question.
Yeah, I hear that. But if I recall correctly, back in the days we didn't have Google and AI to kind of help us with our endeavors at this point. I remember when I was younger, me and my father going to friends' house of his to ask questions about antennas, about wiring, connectors, stations, handhelds, what have you. Anything incorporating this whole element of what we do into fun. And back in the days, you literally had to know someone who knew someone who knew someone to get the information, which goes back into what W4FMP stated when he went online asking for a question, and they trolled him, made fun of him. That's not what it is. Like John said, M6JDH, hams help hams, and you really don't learn until after you get your ticket.
Yes, your ticket is a license to learn. So this is the first I've heard of the whole Facebook, and part of that is that I am no longer on Facebook, and I haven't been on Facebook for years, and actually any social media, and unfortunately that's one of the reasons. A lot of good stuff on there, but you always have some people, and you'll get that on the air, and sometimes it just happens. To answer what you others said, yes, we didn't have all the resources, but I also think there's a lot more to the hobby now, than there was before. I think people operate at a higher level. There's a lot more knowledge out there. There's a lot more stuff out there. There's all the digital modes. You have a lot more as far as, the HF modes. Keep in mind, years ago, as sideband was kind of new, and you didn't have WinLink. I remember when I first got into it, I was doing packet radio, and packet radio was kind of new and, cutting edge, and you could actually go into a bulletin board, and that's when AOL was still new and fresh. Back to you, Sean.
Yeah, that's that broadband making noise while you're connecting internet. Times have changed. I mean, I'm not that old as you guys, but I did experience the first age of the computers coming in, so I would say my generation will be the start of all of that. But I'm an old soul. If you guys will catch me at the swap shop in the picnic on Saturday, I want to come and introduce myself and get to know you guys, kind of see what the group is about. I just love to broaden horizon with the combined knowledge, because once those masters of the specifics kind of die off, if they don't pass their knowledge and they end up silent keyed with nobody else passing it along, the torch burns out. I want to be one of those people that can at least soak it in and then express it outward when somebody needs assistance.
Sean, and what you will find is that'll end up being a natural progression. And at this point, I've been in the club for a little bit, and unfortunately, I've been in long enough to see that we've lost some folks that were really key people in the club. But the positive sign is that we've had people come up that have filled those roles and done very well and have continued the tradition and continued moving us forward. So that's what it's all about. And unfortunately, I will not be able to meet you at the picnic. I actually have a family event, and my niece is getting married, and if I miss that, I am in big trouble. Back to you.
K4PI-R repeater.
This is KR4PI-R, and roger that. Well, enjoy yourself. You get to dress up. I also have congratulations for Kilo Romeo 4 Delta Delta Romeo Tom. Congratulations on becoming a new ham. I know I got my first congratulations as well. I just wanted to be a second one to call it out. This will be my last, ready for the next one. Back to you, Larry, and thank you.
Thanks, Sean, and thanks for coming in, and I'll come to you on the second round also, and then next week will be the third net. So with that, this is Larry, N1NQU for the Fort Myers Amateur Radio Club Newbie Net, and we'll go to Eric, W4EPS. Eric, over to you.
W4EPS, good evening, everyone. Larry, I got to say, this club has been my Elmer. One of the first people I met after I joined the club wasn't even a ham. I just bought the ticket, figured I'd support them. I went to a meeting at EOC, was overly welcomed, overly just, everybody was just flippin' friendly, man. It's really unusual for any club that you're a new face at, much less that I don't dress in a shirt and tie and act all prim and proper. And, it just really overly impressed me. And the first person to really reach out beyond that was Jim Blocker. And Jim took, oh my gosh, we probably spoke 45 minutes to an hour on the phone. Just, he's asking me questions, trying to see where I want to go with stuff. And, he got me kind of thinking a little bit. I'm like, holy cow, this is a group of guys that is very unusual in today's world, period. Break. And the first bit of advice that he gave me, because of course I had to ask that question, which radio should I buy? And the answer is, I'll let y'all say it all out loud to each other at the same time, and we know what that is. It depends. Well, that was great. So I put him in a corner because he said something about a power supply. And I had been in the pawn, P-A-W-N, pawn shop business for a number of decades. And so I was familiar with 12-volt pretty much and gauging and wires and so forth. But anyways, so I asked him which brand 12-volt power supply I should buy. And without even batting an eye, he stated that, he has an Astron. And I asked him which one. He told me, and I jumped on, I think, HRO or Gigaparts and bought one that evening. So that kind of forced me into studying a little harder than before. But I got to say, FMARC has been just not an Elmer, but the Elmer overall. The entire group is just a cohesive nucleus of unbelievable reasons. With that, this is W4EPS. Thank you, everyone.
Welcome to the Fort Myers Amateur Radio Club linked repeater system.
Thanks, Eric. And I will say, this club, now, unfortunately, I don't get to a lot of the in-person stuff as often as I would like. And a lot of that is because I am out of county. And, as far as responsibilities with my daughter after work hours on some of the nights, which is usually when the meetings fall. So I do try to still get in, via Zoom. But I do try to make the meetings, and I'll tell you, one of the highlights is having people on the net, and then actually going to an event and meeting those people in person. And it happens more often than not, and that's the most fun. And yes, the club is very welcoming. The first club, that I joined when I first got my ticket, which was up north, they were okay, but they weren't exactly the club that was going to take somebody new in, take them under their wing, and bring them along. And as I said, they weren't bad, but it was just definitely not at the same level. So, thanks, Eric. And with that, we'll go to KR4PI-R. Stephen, over to you.
KR4PI-R. Good evening, everyone. Trying out a new 2-meter, see if this works out.
Net control comment.
A bunch of noise in your signal, but we had you in there, and then I think you lost the repeater there. You want to try it, come back in? KR4DDF. Stephen, you still with us?
This is KR4DDF. Switch over to Echolink since I'm not keeping the repeater. Good evening, all. Gonna have to go back in. It's getting a little late, so I'm gonna jump off here. You all have a good night. KR4DDF.
Okay, Stephen, we got you that time. Thanks for coming in. I'll put it down as your 7-3 round, although if you hear something you're interested in and you want to come back in, just jump on in. Just so you know, on your Echolink, there was some reverberation there, so you could probably turn the mic down a little bit and clear some of that up. It's probably a little bit more sensitive than you think. But thanks for coming in, and if we don't hear you on the second round, then hopefully we'll hear you next week. With that, W4FNP, Alex, over to you.
Well, good evening, Larry, and everybody on the net. Good to listen to all the questions. I appreciate that we've been talking about the Elmers. That really helps, especially on a newbie end. Being able to ask a question without being flogged, so to say. Lord Lord knows I've had several. But yet also, too, got some knowledge, and I'm willing to help out with others as much as I possibly can. I do think, though, unfortunately I don't have too much to rag to about tonight. I think I'm going to step away and call 73s. I wish everybody a wonderful evening and hope to either see you face-to-face on Saturday or chew the fat with you next week. So, Larry, you're doing a wonderful job. Thank you for your service, sir. I appreciate it. And we'll talk to you guys at another time. This is W4 FMP. We'll be clear. Back to net.
Well, thanks, Alex. Thanks for coming in, and I'll put it down as your 7-3 round, and that's what'll happen. You'll find out that you're the one asking the questions, and then you find out you have people asking you questions, and that's just the normal progression. And the other thing, I want folks to come away with is that it is okay to ask. Especially if you're in an area that you're not familiar with. It's okay to ask, and I was in that position this weekend, and, Dan was great and spent a lot of time helping me out, and, but it's a question of just because you have some experience in one area, you may be venturing into something else that you're not familiar with. Computers are not my expertise. I can get them most of the time to do what I want them to do, but also not at the level of Rick, messing with Linux and doing all that stuff. But as I said, always something to keep in mind.
K4PI-R
Larry,
repeater.
N1NQU for the Fort Myers Amateur Radio Club Newbie Net. And with that, Dan, when you checked in before, I did put you in the log, so I'll send it over to you. KD7 ACB, over to you.
Well, good evening, Larry. Dan, KD7ACB up here in North Fort Myers, and good net tonight. Enjoying listening along to everybody's comments, and that was quite a bear figuring out how to open those ports. And what doesn't help the situation is when you're dealing with internet service providers and things like that. Everyone is a little bit different. When you go into these routers, especially these home-based ones, that you get from Comcast or Quantum or whoever, they're each a little bit different as far as where they put the particular setting or what they call it. And I learned something yesterday about how Comcast does DHCP reservations. They don't do it like you think they would. So, most of the time, not without getting too deep into the IT weeds, most of the time with a DHCP reservation, you tell the router, okay, I want this computer to have this address every single time. It asks for it, and the router gives it out every time the computer asks for it. Well, the way it was in Larry's particular case, and where our problem stemmed from, we told his router, okay, this is the computer, I want it to have this address every time it starts, and wasn't doing it, couldn't figure out what the heck. Well, finally I got in my head, well, what if we tell the computer, all right, this is the address you've been assigned, which you shouldn't have to do that with DHCP. But that's what we did, and it worked. So we had to tell the computer, this is your address, instead of the computer asking for it from the router, and the router handing that address to the computer. So that's the explanation in very basic terms. So yeah, Comcast does it a little differently. So, but it's been quite an adventure. Let me break for a little time. It's been quite an adventure with this WiresX stuff and getting it running. And I read somewhere in the countless hours that I've spent reading and digging through WiresX documentation that when you have an HRI of 200 hooked up, the reason why you have to have all these open ports is because basically what the HRI 200 is doing in combination with your computer is creating a little mini communications server. So other nodes that want to connect to your room is basically a communications server. So other nodes out there on the internet that want to connect to your room, your server, have to be able to get in through those ports. So that's kind of the basic explanation of that. If you have a PDN, that doesn't require any open ports because you're not you're making outgoing connections. You don't have any connections incoming. So let's see what else. Trying to figure out the best way to run an Ethernet cable to my shed to set a link up out there for one of the WiresX repeaters. So my plan is to get an internet link run out there. That's going to be kind of the hard part because I'm going to need somebody to crawl up in the attic and run a cable about 15, 20 feet. But after that, then it's a big old long run down the side of the house, down the side of the pool cage, and over to the shed. So trying to figure out the best way to do that without having to go underground and call before you dig and do all that, because that's kind of a hassle. Don't really want to put it underground unless I have to. And surge protectors at either end, and yada yada yada. So fun stuff. So trying to plan that out, figure out how to go about that project. So that's about what's going on here. KD7ACB, back to net.
Thanks, Dan. And yes, I learned an awful lot. Not only as far as, the ports, how they work and why they work and what they're supposed to do, but I did catch one of the videos as far as, the communication hub and so on and so forth. I also learned why when you are running, why you have a node and a room and why they're two different numbers. Because basically the room stays put and you're moving the node. The node is the connection, and the room is just kind of there. So, first time having an HRI 200, I realized you actually need to connect your own node to your own room. Just because they're in the same box and on the same radio, doesn't mean that it's automatically connected, because the connection is you're connecting with the node to the room. And so, yeah, that was very, very interesting. So, one thing I would suggest, and I don't know if it's a possibility to avoid having to run, the bunch of cable and everything else. I'm not sure how far away you are, but if there is a possibility of, doing a Wi-Fi connection, especially, I don't know if you're doing an HRI 200 or if you're doing a PDN. But if you're doing a PDN, you could, if you have a decent Wi-Fi connection, run off that. Back to you.
Thought about it. Yeah, it is going to be an HRI 200. And I do have a spare microtik that that I was going to put AREDN on, but I may try to use it as intended with the stock firmware and put it in station mode and try to maybe use that as a Wi-Fi access point. I'm not sure how well it's going to work because basically it's its own router. So if you did that, it'd be behind a double router situation. And you think one router gives you a headache? You're behind a double router? Yeah, get yourself a bottle of Tylenol. I may give it a try just to see what happens. I'm not very hopeful, but may try that. Before we try running the cable. But I'm 100% confident that the cable will work, and you do what I want to do with it. The Wi-Fi router may, but probably not. But we'll give that a try. That's some of the things I'm going to do tomorrow is get that out of the box and play around with it and see where the heck they put the settings, how you put it in station mode and all that fun stuff. So to learn about MikroTik Router OS. KD7ACB, back to net.
K4SJC repeater.
Okay, and it was, as I said, I didn't know the setup and if Wi-Fi was a possibility. As we learned, the node and the room are two separate items. So, as I said, could probably point a node to it. And I know that as far as the nodes are concerned, I run nodes off little jetpacks, and and they work just fine. So that as long as there's a good good Wi-Fi connection, may save a lot of headache there. So, thanks, Dan. And with that, brings us to the end of the list. Do we have any additional check-ins for the Newbie Net? Come now.
This is Whiskey Delta 4, Mike Alpha November, Daryl in Lehigh.
This is Larry, N1NQU for the Fort Myers Amateur Radio Club Newbie Net. And Daryl, WD4MAN. Interesting because if you were listening, and I know you were on the net tonight, I actually made a mistake. And so it happens. So, as I said, it happens, and, I just move on. Over to you.
Good evening. The time is 9 p.m.
Thanks for that, Larry. You know what? When you're listening to it, it doesn't sound as bad as when you actually do it. I think that's a lot of it, When you know you messed up there, you feel it more. But when somebody else messes up, you say, oh, well, you're moving along. Just like you said, you move along. I've been lurking tonight. I kind of have paid attention to what's going on. I do have some comments on distance linking there. You don't a couple of engineering notes. You don't want to go more than 50 feet on an Ethernet line without a booster on it. That would be a consideration. I don't know how far the run is. And secondly, if you're going to do wireless, there's always the option of using the Pringles antenna, and that will extend your range on a wireless. And I use that like with air quotes, but they have one actually. You can Google it. But you guys can make your own Pringles can using like a number 4 can, and